Alright everyone, let's get citrusy. What's crack-a-lackin' my literary geeks? Happy Tuesday. To trilogy or not to trilogy? That is the question. Yes, I do casually have a deer skull hanging out in the back of my videos. Don't ask questions. A lot of writers, especially when you want to write epic fantasy novels, tend to go towards writing multiple of them. Writers often use full series because it has a lot of time to explore the massive world building that you've made, or all of the characters that you've made 10 character sheets for. Like, you want to put in all the details, and you can't just do that in one book. Hence, a series. Sometimes the action's gonna take more than like an hour and a half, and you need a whole 4 books to be able to get your characters from point A to point B, both in their character arcs and in their distance covering. And a couple years ago, the big thing was to do trilogies. You know, trilogies. They're everywhere. Everyone was talking about them. You had to do a trilogy. And that often got into a whole lot of criticism because, oh, they're just stretching out the plot to make books, or oh, then you have like the second book sag, which is just like no one likes the second book because it's just all rising action to the third book. Or readers felt like there were too many random details and they could have cut out a whole book just in general, but publishing companies wanted you to have 3. And in the last couple of years, the big new thing that's come out is to write a duology, which is just 2 books. And that both comes with its pros and cons. A lot of people think that there's not enough to make 2, that they should have just put it down to 1. Or people think that there was too much for 2 and then they should have made it 3. And sometimes writers feel shoehorned into writing a duology when they wanted to write a trilogy because duologies are selling better at the moment. And you as a writer at home are like, what the heck do I do? Like, I have this story I want to tell, but I have no idea how to tell it and in what order and how many books. And while something like a professional editor or an agent can definitely help you with that, I'm here today to just give you some advice, whether you should write a trilogy or a duology. So here's some things to think about when you want to write a trilogy. To start out with, books in a trilogy are often written in 3-act structures, which means that you have to have 9 acts over one complete character arc. The first book introduces the problem, and the second book ramps up the tension. The third book is supposed to release the tension in a resolution or a twist. Some pros of writing a trilogy include being able to up your character's emotional labor because you have more time to explore it, have more challenging obstacles for your characters because they're going to need more of them to reach their goal, and you can move the action or revelations of the story to different places. The issues or cons towards writing a trilogy include you have to resolve a lot of plot lines and tensions and make sure that the ending is a solid resolution for your reader. You have to wrap up the series without being too predictable, and you have to make sure that the surprise or climax at the end of the book is surprising, as all your characters have had all of this time to figure something out. When you're first introducing the first book of a series, you have a little bit more freedom in what you write, what your characters are like, how the world is, because it's new and exciting and everyone wants to learn more and more. The problem with the second book becomes then that these are not new characters, it's not a new world, and these are not new problems, so readers tend to get bored. And if you're writing through multiple books, you have to think about the levels of tension, where they're going to drop and where they're going to rise, and able to enact a fully tension-filled plotline or arc. You can't have all this action in the first one and then just not do anything in the second book and have your characters run around in canyons for like 2 months. Cross, Ali Condi. Just saying, you need to have something happening in the second one because no one's gonna care about what happens in the third. You have to have a separate main conflict in each book that is resolved in the course of that book while still having a conflict that carries through the whole series. But if you do write a trilogy, you have more chances to expand a world, dive deeper into characters, dive deeper into tension. Plus you get to like make up a bunch of cool places and animals and creatures, and often your reader will have a more immersive time. So let's say you're feeling a little intimidated by this trilogy thing, and you think, you know what? Let's just make it 2 books. Let's just make a duology. Well, here's some pros and cons for that too. Pros to writing a duology include, it's only 2 books, so you can focus more on the characters or the story and less on the world building. Since you're splitting your story in half, the end of the first book is a completely appropriate place to put a massive cliffhanger. Third, the intimidation factor is pretty low, because it's only 2 books. It's not a full series, you're not making like 7 of them, you're not making even 3 of them, you're only making 2. But the cons to writing a duology include, it's only 2 books. So you have to restructure an entire trilogy into just 2, which usually means messing with the stage and plot structures. You're going to have to limit your content, which could be good, but it can also be bad because it may leave readers feeling like they didn't get enough. And through that, sometimes your world or your plot could feel underdeveloped. And depending on what you write and who you sell it to, con number 3 is that it may leak into a trilogy, and then you have to just restructure everything and your audience is probably going to be a little confused. This is 100% a marketing ploy because I saw the first 2 did really well and thought, well, we can make more money if we get a third one, but then the author Like, as an author, then your story doesn't make sense anymore because now you've had to suddenly create more content or more world from something that you had pretty much finished with. So I can't tell you whether you should write a trilogy or duology, but here are some factors that may make that come into play. Both types can be successful, and it really just depends on what you want to write and how you want to tell your story. Let's get the discussion going down in the comments of some of your favorite trilogies or favorite duologies, or which ones that you thought did really well, or which ones that you thought didn't do really well. Make sure to tune in at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time here on YouTube on Sunday for our live chat, and I will see you guys all there. Have a good week!